countless innocent viewers watched this.
We're here again for another Hauntworld The Movie. This time, it's part 8. And I promise you that we're going to upload several more coming up very soon. And this one here is part 8. Of course, we have Dr. Lady, and he's on the video. We have Arizona Fright Nights. We have some information on how to build a trailer haunt. Trailer haunts in Las Vegas from my friend Rich Strelak. We have Terror Dome in Pittsburgh, Chateau Greystoke, and Curse of the Mummy 3D. Plus a lot of, well, you be the judge, whether this information is useless literally 20 years later. When we made these videos, it was the early 2000s and late 1990s. Now you get to see just what they look like. Are you ready for Hauntworld the Movie Part 8? Here we go.
What shall I watch tonight? There must be a new video here somewhere. How the Blair Witch got her groove back. Mars needs sweeping. Oh, here we are. A new volume of Hauntworld. What shall I watch tonight? There must be a new video here somewhere. How the Blair Witch got her groove back. Mars needs sweeping. Oh, here we are. A new volume of Hauntworld. What shall I watch tonight? There must be a new video here somewhere. How the Blair Witch got her groove back. Mars needs sweeping. Oh, here we are. A new volume of Hauntworld. What shall I watch?
back for Hauntworld The Movie Part 8. I remember when we made one of those other Hauntworlds, I couldn't remember what part it was because we made so many. And yes, there is a Part 9, so if you're watching Part 8, you don't have Part 9, there's a Part 9. There's also a Part 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Yes, that's right. And we haven't done a prequel yet, but we're working on it. This guy that you just saw a second ago, that was Jim Kelly. He's the guy that put me in the Iron Maiden. If anybody knows me, I get revenge. And revenge is always sweet. Also, you're probably wondering what we're going to cover here in Hauntworld The Movie Part 8. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to go back in time before I was killed by Jim Kelly, before Dr. Lady and his evil wife turned me into dust and flushed me down the toilet in Part 7 or 6 or one of those. We're going to go back to where we made our first how-to tape. It was called How to Create Your Own Haunted House. And believe it or not, I was wearing this very same jacket. That's right. That's from 7 years ago. I still have the same jacket. We're going to talk about how to create your own haunted house from scratch. Like what the differences are in warehouses to fog machines to sound and the whole shebang. So this is going to be a really fun tape. This is going to be, to some degree, the basics, okay, updated from when we did the first tape. We're also going to talk about a variety of other things, and we're going to show you a lot of haunted houses. For some of the haunted houses that we have in this edition of Hauntworld, we have Curse of the Mummy in 3D. We have Arizona Fright Nights, which is put on by Paul Boyd. We have a haunted house called Chateau Greystroke and Terror Dome, put on by Robert Short. We also have Scare Fair 2000, and we have the Fright Castle. We also have some really cool segments, and of course, Dr. Lady and everybody, the whole crew is going to be here for Hauntworld The Movie Part 8. Real quick before we jump into it, a couple things new at Hauntworld. We've added some really cool surveys which you can use in your haunted house sponsorship program. Go to Hauntworld and print out these surveys, and you'll see like one of the questions is like, for what ages do you find Halloween appropriate? What's your favorite way of celebrating Halloween now? And people say haunted houses, and 91% say Halloween's acceptable for all ages, da-da-da-da. You can use these facts, these tidbits, in your sponsorship pitches to whoever you're pitching so they understand what the percentages are of Halloween. And so you might want to check that out. We've also added a lot of new articles. The haunted auction is really hopping from time to time. And we're also doing a thing called the Haunted House Hall of Fame and Haunter Hall of Fame. And what that is we're trying to honor haunters who've done a lot for the industry. And we're also going to honor haunted houses that have helped us evolve to where we are today. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a haunted house that's still in business. It could be, Terror on Church Street, for example, which is no longer with us in the form that it was originally, and so on and so forth. So that's what's going on. But before we get any farther, you're probably wondering how I came back to life. Well, we got to go out and see Dr. Lady out at the Horror Hotel to find out how Dr. Frightener, Larry Kirshner, a.k.a. whatever, a.k.a. known for a lot of other things that we won't go into on this tape. So let's go on out to Chatfield, Ohio, and see what the doctors got cooking.
We interrupt this program because it's really annoying.
Instead, we invite you to join us in ignoring the preceding scene and watching last Thursday afternoon's clip of Dr. Lady talking about something. Hey, folks! If you're like most people down throughout history, you're dead already. Which reminds me of coffins. You just can't have a haunted house without at least one or two nice coffins in there. Well, okay, I think maybe you can in Nebraska and Idaho, but I'm pretty sure it's illegal in the rest of the states. Anyway, if you're like me, and gosh, who isn't, maybe the modern-day looking, more contemporary caskets just don't have the spooky look like you want. They just don't say creepy old Halloween scene, which of course leaves them as being perfectly fine props for contemporary type funeral scenes you may be doing. But if you want something that goes back into the past a little more, looks more like something authentically aged, something that fits in better with a gothic horror type scene, you might want to make your own coffins using the old-fashioned style, which is this sort of kite shape. Sometimes they call them toe pinchers, and if Wolfie ever drops one on your foot, you'll know why. But anyway, You can make your own. You can get the coffins in this style made out of cardboard, but it's really hard to disguise the fact that they're cardboard, and, well, sometimes they look kind of cheesy, unless you're very, very creative with them and how you use them. And likewise, I've seen foam ones, which looked great, but commercially available items, but the foam ones, trouble with them was they're not very sturdy. So if you want to make your own, don't just run down to Builder's Labyrinth or someplace like that and get your average plywood. No, build your coffins out of barn siding, old barn siding at that, which of course you get from old barns. Talk to any building contractors or even very ambitious vandals that you know. Ask them if they have any plans to tear down any barns in the near future. You can usually score tons of this stuff free, and they'll just give it to you for taking it away. Now let me show you the lid here. This particular coffin, look at that, fine American craftsmanship. You can't get that kind of look with new lumber that you buy down at your local lumber yard, because this, of course, looks nice and weathered and aged, and much more authentic for those zombie-type scenes, vampire scenes, what have you. And then, just to give it a little more character, we stuck some Spanish moss here and there on it, and there you go. Coffins, you know. But I would caution you, if any bits of the barn siding that you get feel squishy or spongy or too splintery, those are gone. Don't use those. Those are shot. Those are past their usefulness. Kind of like Dr. Frightener, you know, outlived their usefulness. So just use the parts that feel nice and solid and sturdy, and make yourself your own caskets and coffins. And by the way, another good thing you can do with old barn siding, if you're lucky enough to get your hands on some, it looks great when you nail it up over the windows for that boarded up spooky old house look. Very authentic look there. Also, really anything else where wood surfaces need to show. However, I would caution you that if you're going to use it for bridges or walkways or something like that, use some nice, new, solid, good, strong, sturdy plywood underneath, and just use the old weathered barn siding over top of that for appearance's sake. And, well, that's about all I have to say about that. Don't feel bad about Cousin Seagrave here. Unfortunately, I didn't have a coffin that I had made out of old barn siding that I could show for this segment of the video production, so I just had to dig one up from the Lady Family Cemetery. But don't feel bad. He was complaining about the fact that his coffin was leaking lately anyway. And by the way, if he seems a little stiff, a little quiet, he's really, really camera shy. Really uncomfortable in front of the camera, so do me a favor, don't stare at him too much or anything, because we don't want him to get all nervous and lose his decomposure and maybe get into one of his bitey moods or anything like that. So just don't stare at him too much. Thank you. And now, in response to a steadily diminishing number of requests, we bring you the following explanation of just what's been going on in previous episodes of Hauntworld.
For the benefit of those viewers who have been watching the Hauntworld series from the very beginning and who now have that deer caught in the headlights look in their eyes, I'd like to explain a little bit about this whole Larry Kirshner, Dr. Frightener thing that's been going on. Now, people have been asking us things like, is Dr. Frightener a real ghost, or is he just Larry Kirshner in drag? Did Laura Lady really dematerialize Dr. Frightener, or was that just a joke? Is Larry really dead? And if not, can it be arranged? Actually, the whole thing is very simple once you take into account the fact that it doesn't make any sense. Now, here's a quick recap, okay? Early tapes of the series were hosted by Dr. Frightener, who's a ghost. They featured visits with Larry Kirshner, who is a human in front of a computer. In Part 2, Dr. Lady caused problems by trying to sell his latest book without permission, which is being brought up again by me right now, even though I know it will only create more problems. In Part 5, Dr. Speculo allegedly kidnapped and dematerialized Dr. Frightener, leaving Larry as the series' only host. Dr. Speculo then attempted to take over Hauntworld by constantly interrupting the broadcasts with his commercials. He accomplished this by means of a pirate satellite, which is just like a regular satellite except that it comes equipped with an eye patch and a parrot. Then it was found that pirate satellites can only transmit movies that are rated R. Okay, that part I made up. I admit it. But with Dr. Frightener gone, Larry Kirshner sat at his computer screen for hours, unable to think of anything to say. Countless innocent viewers watched this. So then Dr. Lady was called upon to try to reassemble Dr. Frightener's atoms in his laboratory at the Horror Hotel. He was only able to produce a pile of powdered ectoplasm, though, which was then mailed to Hauntworld, and then, in a shockingly not particularly funny turn of events, was sent back to Horror Hotel, where we learned in a surprising and boldly pointless plot development that it was really Dr. Lady's evil wife Laura and not Dr. Speculo who had dematerialized Dr. Frightener after all. Then, let me see, one of Larry's disgruntled employees killed Larry in a prop Iron Maiden. The killer, I believe his name was Jim Kelly, was acquitted of the crime on grounds of temporary sanity. Larry then showed up as a ghost and told us that he had actually already been dead the whole time, and that his murder had actually occurred before the release of Part 1. He also admitted that he had been masquerading as Dr. Frightener, and that all the episodes of Hauntworld were actually released out of order. Ultimately then, Part 7 turned out to be Part 1, Part 2 turned out to be Part 6, Part 5 turned out to be Part 3, and Part 4 turned out to be old Farmer Henderson, who just wanted to scare people away while he looked for a point. Now, once again, it's up to Dr. Lady of Horror Hotel to set things straight. Heaven help us.
Great quivering gristle. You mean that's what's been going on around here all this time? Larry Kirshner is a ghost now. Well, that explains a lot. Not everything, but explains a lot. Yeah, he's a ghost. Don't you get it? He can appear and disappear at will, or at Chatfield. He can go through walls. He can become invisible. That explains who's been doing all these pranks around here lately. That explains who's been sneaking up on you, that invisible presence sneaking up on you, giving you a snuggie every night. It explains why somebody has been scratching out the name Dr. Lady on all of my books and articles and writing in the name Larry Kirshner instead. It's Larry's ghost. It also explains who's been creeping around Laura's dressing room trying her clothes on. Looks like I owe Jim O'Rear an apology. No, this won't do. This is terrible. Larry is actually more annoying as a ghost than he was as a human. I've got to bring him back to life. Something has got to be done. What? Huh? Oh, I must have fallen asleep while watching my own videos. They always have that effect on me. But what do you know? That whole thing about Larry and all that, it was just a dream. Oh no, wait a minute. Wait a minute. That part was the dream. This part is real. It really did happen. Well, I'll just have to go do something about it. Yes, indeed. I got to clear up this whole mess with Larry Kirshner and Dr. Frightener and the whole thing. And I'm. What's the matter with you?
Gotta do something.
Oh. Larry's ghost again? Yeah. Well, don't worry. I got a plan. I got it all figured out. I know exactly what to do. This gives me a chance to try out my new time travel invention. All I have to do is go back in time before Dr. Frightener was dematerialized and before Larry was killed and prevent it from happening. Everything will be fine then.
Last time you did that, I had 2 tails.
No, I understand, but that was my old time travel invention. That was the old time travel waffle iron. It was a little silly, I admit it. But my new invention is the much more high-tech and up-to-date, very sophisticated time travel abacus. Or is that abacus? Well, anyway, all I have to do is go back in time, stop Laura from destroying Dr. Frightener, find that disgruntled employee who bumped off Larry, gruntle him so that he won't bump off Larry, and return to the present. Everything will be fine. What could possibly go wrong? Almost ready. I'll just set the coordinates for several videotapes ago, and I'm all set to travel into the past.
Are you really going back, Dr. Lady?
You betcha. I'm on my way. Hey, this thing came off. I'll do some repairs when I get back.
Don't forget, be careful with the time-space continuum.
Oh yeah, I know all that nonsense about any little thing you do screws up history. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Nothing will go wrong. This is going to be fine. All I have to do is go back and change all the things that went wrong with the previous Hauntworld episodes, and it'll be fine. And with that, I am all set to embark on my greatest and boldest adventure ever. And when I get back, I'll let you know how it went.
Here's a little little something we came up with to make our ordinary windows look more fun and spooky. We bought plastic toy bats and we spray painted them a decorative color. In this case, it was gold. And we tied them with a bit of fishing line to the ends of the curtain rods. And presto, instant haunted house window decor that any monster would love. Actually, we've gotten several nice comments about this, and it was very quick and easy to do. Right, Wolfie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, buddy. Oh, yeah.
Here's something to keep in mind when you're doing your set decorating and lighting. A lot of haunters use duct tape, and so do we, to hold together everything from props to wires to costumes and masks, and it does work, but it's very reflective, and a lot of people use it in their homes, so they're used to seeing it as a common sight, and when they see it at your haunt, it's going to spoil the atmosphere. So, what's better than duct tape is gaffer's tape. It's black, it's flat, blends into the background. Look at this. Look how reflective that is. See how the light catches and glints off the duct tape? But watch this. When you use the gaffer's tape, see, the gaffer's tape just sort of blends into the background, even when it's right out in plain sight.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dr. Lady, and I really appreciate all the kind words you had to say about me. Yeah, right. Okay, we're going to jump right into this because we got a lot to cover, and, you know, these tapes are always like 2.5 hours long, and a lot of people always ask me, you know, why aren't the, you know, you're supposed to be an aspiring film director or filmmaker or whatever, why aren't the tapes edited better? Let me tell you something, when you're trying to cut from like 10 hours to 2 hours, and you're editing 2 hours of, I mean, it takes forever, and you're just like, by the time you're like halfway through, you're like, no, just edit it. So when we make these videos, because we're trying to make them as affordable as possible, we got to cut the budget. And one of the ways to cut the budget is have an easel here, okay? So we're not doing fancy graphics on the screen. We're going to have an easel like we did in the first How to Create Your Own Haunted House. We're going to draw a few things from time to time. The cameraman is going to zoom in, and we're going to talk about this. But so let's try to rip right through it. Of course, I got my script because I don't have any idea what I'm talking about without it. There's two different kinds of haunted houses. There's warehouse and there's screen park. There's a big difference between both. A warehouse is a haunted house like in an old building or so on and so forth. A screen park is more like a spooky world where you've got multiple attractions set up, whether they're open air, meaning no tent or cover, or they have they're in tents, or maybe they're in some smaller buildings. So there's two different kinds, and I'm going to try to go over both kinds, and I'm going to try to tell you what you should do with a warehouse and what you should do with a screen park. In a warehouse, they're usually downtown. Okay, and don't worry about my scribble. I know my handwriting's bad. But anyway, they're usually downtown, okay? Or they could be in an old grocery store or something like this. A couple things you want to have in them. You want to have an indoor queue line. You want to have more than one maze, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But to kind of give you some details of what I'm talking about there is, it's my conclusion that if you have a 10,000 square foot haunted house and you're charging $10, well, let's say all of a sudden you double the size to 20,000. Do you think you can charge $20? No, it's not going to happen. And I think right now the average ticket price in the nation is about $13. Okay, you don't want to go much higher because people don't want to. They will only pay so much for this kind of entertainment. So you got to find other ways to increase your per cap, so to speak, because food and selling T-shirts and all that stuff just doesn't work for us. You have to remember, people are coming to see it because they want to see something unique and scary and fun. So, that being said, you want to have more than one maze. And let me draw you a picture and show you what I mean with the trusty marker. Let's say your building is like this. Let's say this building is, say, 10,000 or 20,000 square feet. Let's say this is the entrance. Let's make that your primary haunted house. And let's say that's 8,000 square feet. This will be your haunted house with all your fancy animatronics and detail and so on and so forth. And this, let's say, is the entrance into that haunted house, and it exits out over here. What you're probably going to want to do is to set up a smaller haunted house here. Let's say it's 2,000 square feet with an entrance here. Because see, this comes out, and you can either enter another queue line here, see, which will zigzag into there, or it goes out the exit. And then obviously, say, you could also add another one. People will pay you the $10, let's say, for your primary attraction that you're primarily advertising on the radio and whatnot. People are here to see you. They want to see something scary. You want to have an indoor queue line, okay? And you might want to theme it with some monsters in the corner. Maybe you want to build some really cool-looking stanchions and have some figures on them. You know, theme out the place real nice. Put a facade, real important. I see a lot of warehouse haunted houses forgetting about facade. But I'm telling you, that's the first impression. That's going to help out quite a bit. But the bottom line is, if you're getting $10 for this attraction, okay, and I'm going to try to use some simple math here to prove my point. Let's say you're doing 30,000 people. Oh, let's say you're doing 30,000 people. Okay, at $10, that's $300,000. Now let's say you do your side attraction, and you only get 40% of the people to go through your side attraction at a cost of $5. Okay? Hopefully you're following along here. And what does that add up to? That adds up to a total of $60,000. Because you're going to get 12,000 people, okay, to go through and pay you $5. Subsequently, what that means is that everybody who came through your attraction paid you an extra $2. So technically, you've raised your ticket price for everybody, but the main ticket price is still the same, $10. But you did get $2 more per person. So you could easily have a budget of $60,000 to create yourself a side attraction. For example, we sell 3D houses for $60,000, and you got all kinds of other haunted house companies that'll sell you a 3D attraction or whatever for $60,000. Or you could build it yourself. You could hire some nice artists and come in and build you an attraction for $60,000. I've shown you with 40% of the people out of 30,000, that's 12,000 people, and you got an extra $2 for every person who walked in the door. So see, what happened is you raised your ticket price without raising it, and you invested $60,000. You got your $60,000 back. And the following season, even if you only do $40,000 on it, it's $40,000 profit. Other things about warehouses is, like I said, you need to have facade. You can sell food, but don't put a lot of faith in it. Another thing is you could have TV sets. Let's go back to the warehouse. You could have TV sets like here and here and here and here, hanging in the ceiling, and you can have like run your sponsors' commercials and some scary clips and things like that. And the big difference that I want to get through to you between a warehouse and a screen park, warehouse haunted houses should go for scares. It should be a lot more scary because you're in a location or an area in the market that's not as acceptable for the majority of the people. So you need to go for screams, where a screen park can go for fun because they can attract more families and whatnot. Now let's go to the screen park style haunted house. Usually they're on fairgrounds or farms or big stretches of property or out in a parking lot somewhere in a mall or whatever, and they're usually multi-themed, multi-attractions, and I'm going to get into that in a second. They're usually smaller mazes. The attractions, and I'm going to talk about this in a second too, you want to split the attractions in half, and I'm going to explain that also. One of the big things is you want to build them modular, because usually you're taking them up and taking them down. So you want to build them so that they'll come apart and go in trailers for storage. You want to have walk-around characters. You want to have facades on everything. And you want to try to get a carnival if you can. But the bottom line is you want to market that you're selling fun, not necessarily scared. As my good friend David Pertolino told me, that if you just re-theme or reposition your marketing to be a little bit more of a fun commercial, a little bit more of a fun atmosphere, you'll get more people than if you are saying that it's the scariest thing in town, because there's a lot of people that just don't want to be scared that much. Now let's talk about the screen park style haunted house. Let's say here's your ticket booth. Now this is my optimum way of doing it. Let's find 2 tents, which of course you could have buildings already available or whatever. Let's have 2 tents. And let's separate these tents by 100 feet. Okay? And here's your entrance over here. This is where they're coming in. They're buying their tickets here. Now let's say these tents, we personally, we have a screen park type thing, and we have 12,500 square foot tents. But I know that not everybody's going to be able to run out and get a 12,500 square foot tent. That's pretty big. But let's just say they're 4,000 square feet each. These are both 4,000 square feet. I would split them in half, and I would have 4 smaller 2,000 square foot haunted houses. Ditto, ditto, ditto. With a queue line in front of each attraction. Just like this. Now, what's the main benefit here? I'm going to give you a big, big tip, and this is worth every penny you're paying for this tape. In your food court, as you can see, by having the attraction spread apart, you're putting people in, and they're free to roam around and pick the attractions they want. Have a ticket with a punch card. Okay, let's say you have 4 attractions. Well, it's 4 punches, and it's let's say it's $15. Typically, you can get more money for an event like this, even though it's technically in square footage is smaller than another like a warehouse style. In your ticket booth, you have like a food court in the middle, and sell additional punches. So they can go through some more. So like, let's just say, it's $4 for 4 more punches. Wow, who wouldn't want to buy that? Because once they've gone through, and used all their punches, they're going to want to stick around for a little while longer. Now, by having the attraction spread apart, let's say this corner, this end here, you can have game booths. Okay, because now it works. Now it works. It doesn't work in a warehouse because the people are in line, they go through, and they come out. They're usually not wanting to stick around, but in a screen park type atmosphere, when they've got the freedom to roam around, which you can do in this type of environment, which is harder to do in a warehouse, people will use and play games and stuff, and you might be able to put rides in here, okay? And usually when you have a screen park, you have higher visibility, and people can see the carnival rides and whatnot. So people come in, and they basically have the freedom to circulate around through, and you can sell them more things, and you can have higher per caps. So those are the big differences between a screen park and a warehouse style. And of course, you can have your costume characters walking around, scaring people. And a couple quick ideas. Let's say you don't have all the money to build these 4 smaller haunted houses. Make one just pitch black. 2,000 square foot maze with nothing but black walls, strobe lights, and fishing string. It may sound campy, but I'm going to tell you, people are scared of being in the dark, and that would be a cheap maze, and that would be 1 of 3. I'd easily make 1 a 3D, and 1 a Gothic, and then 1 something different, like maybe zombies or some kind of thing that includes rock and roll style music, or you can have like a Victorian mansion. So that's the first segment that we've gone through here on Hauntworld The Movie, Part 8. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to shoot on out to Arizona, and we're going to take a look at Paul Boyd's haunted house, which is exactly like what I just described. It's a screen park environment. You're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's take a look.
largest.
At Arizona Fright Night, where they have not one, not two, but you can check it out, 3 haunted houses that scared a you-know-what out of you. Now we're going to go inside and give the folks a little bit of a sneak preview by the end of the week. Okay, guys, we're going to come on in. Woo! Where's that? No. Hey, okay, can we get out here? Come on! Alexa, no!
Visit us online at ArizonaFrightNights.com. Call the Fright Line, 623-869-7734. Arizona's largest. Arizona's scariest. Arizona's scariest. Presented by Graveyard Productions.
What'd you think of Paul Boyd's attraction out there in the Phoenix market? It's pretty cool. We're going to actually take a look at another one, totally different, out in Las Vegas. A friend of mine named Rich Strelick has a haunted house called Scare Fair 2000. But before we do that, let's go back and talk about warehouses and Scream Park style haunted attractions. The reason we're coming back to it is because there's a lot of differences between the two. And we're talking about how to create your own haunted house. We're talking about the basics here, okay? You've got to decide as a haunter what is the best for you, okay? And I think that it's real important that you know the most information that you can get and what the big differences are. So we're going to talk about the differences here between the two. Obviously, number one, weather. In a warehouse, you can be inside, you can be indoors, and you can have cover of rain and whatnot. In a Scream Park, I think they get more wiped out by the rain than a warehouse because typically they might have a hayride or all the queue areas are not covered. So that's a big issue. But I still think that weather, if it's raining really bad, really kills both. So it's a harder on a Scream Park than a warehouse. Number two, warehouse-style haunted house is usually left up year-round, so the attractions are generally more detailed, they're better, scarier. Whereas like a Scream Park, it's hard to get that kind of detail when you're setting it up and taking it down, and of course the equipment takes more abuse. Number three, not as good, so you must have more to offer overall. A Scream Park is just not as good as a warehouse-style attraction because, like I said, they're left up. So with a Scream Park type of environment, you've got to offer more, okay? Even though you might technically be offering less in terms of square footage. You need to offer, photo opportunities for kids. You could easily set up a hay bale maze for kids. multiple themed attractions, maybe some rides and these types of things. Typically, people like these type of events better because there's more being offered. Another thing is that families are more friendly towards the screen park, like I said. So as we talked about before, try to play the angle of the families, because I want you to think about this. If you're just attracting teenagers, you're only attracting like 20 or 30% of the entire market. So you're leaving out hundreds and thousands of people, because families, you can't sit there and say it's the scariest, most deadly haunted house ever created, because they're just not going to come. So in a screen park, you want to try to take up the edge off it a little bit and market it as it's a little bit more of an entertaining experience. Security is obviously an issue with a warehouse. You lock the door and you're out of there. With a screen park type of event, you obviously have equipment that's exposed to theft and whatnot. And typically you're going to want to have somebody watching over your equipment at night. Usually you rent a Winnebago or whatever and park it out there. Let's talk about safety issues of each style. In a warehouse, you've got to have a sprinkler system, heat detection, emergency lights. You need to have all of your fog and lights and sound turn off if your emergency lights come on or if there's a problem. So that's expensive. You have to have a PA system, lots of emergency exits, and that might require you to tear a wall out somewhere to build panic hardware to get out of the building. You might have to build steps and stairs and all kinds of other things to get out of the building. You have to have fire retardant wood. In some cases, the fire marshal might make you do everything in drywall, which you've got to try to convince them not to do, because in the long run, you really should go with plywood, even if it's pressure-treated plywood. It lasts longer. And you need to, one of the tips I'm going to give you about talking to fire marshals and whatnot, you need to try to make a blueprint before you ever talk about your haunted house with the fire marshal. You need to try to create the whole maze. You need to try to lay out all the safety features and whatnot and take it to them. They're going to be more impressed by that. So with an outdoor attraction, you have a lot of differences in terms of safety. Typically they are temporary. So, let's say if you're going in a tent, it goes without saying that you could create fire exits in a tent show every 5 feet. So considering that you can have fire exits every 5 feet, I think that it's safe to say that you don't have to have as much as a warehouse-style haunted house, because in a warehouse they're usually big, and you could be somewhere way in the middle of the maze, and you'd have to go far distances to finally find an exit and whatnot. Tent shows are safer. They're safer than a building. There's obviously pitfalls with tents, but their tents are safer because you can find an exit quicker. So considering that, that's one of the things that you need to try to use to your benefit when dealing with your fire department. Try to create more exits. Okay, they'll be more impressed by it. Couple things is you can do a haunted house with no tent top, open air. They've done it before, they work, but try to find a theme that's that plays along with it, like a wasteland type of environment or something like this, military base, so on and so forth. Sometimes outdoor shows have to have sprinkler systems, like temporary ones, which you can make out of PVC pipe, and you usually hook them up to fire hydrants. Sometimes not. Personally, I don't think it's a necessity to have a sprinkler system in a tent show because of the fact that you can have exits every 5 feet. Sometimes you can get on fire watch in lieu of a sprinkler system, or even if they'll require a sprinkler system, a fire watch is really good because the fire department's there monitoring the whole situation, and usually that's a nice trade-off for a sprinkler system. Usually when people do the tent shows, they're using extension cords and generators and GFIs and things like this. Make sure that you have no extension cords laying on the ground. So for example, you have your generator up high in the air, like on the back of a trailer, and so all the power that comes out of the generator is going up. And you put it up into the top of the tent and run it down along the tops of the walls. You don't want to run a generator on the ground and let the cords run around. That's a bad idea. Another thing, you want to try to create as many exits as you can. With a tent show, there's no reason not to have several exits because you can literally put them everywhere. If you can, leave the attraction up. I've seen a lot of people do it. Wood generally, might bow or whatever after several seasons of weather. But typically, you just keep putting screws in it, and they'll usually last about 5 or 7 years. You could get, pressure-treated wood that'll, water-treated wood and whatnot, and it'll last a lot longer. It'll save you money in the long run. Finally, I want to talk about hay wagons. A lot of people have hay rides. I'm going to draw you a picture. We've seen now several hayride accidents in the past couple of years, and this is bad for the business. As a matter of fact, right here in St. Louis, a hay wagon went crazy and rolled backwards and crashed into a tree or something, and some girl flew out of the back of it and obviously died. And several other people were injured very bad. With a hayride, I want to tell you a couple things. Number one, the trail. Okay? Whoops. The trail. You don't want to have a trail that goes up and down, up and down, up and down. That's bad. Try to have a trail that's flat. How could a hay wagon fall off the back of the tractor and roll down a hill and into a tree if all the trail is flat? So try, if you can, to have a hay wagon that doesn't go up steep hills or doesn't go down steep, declines. That's really important. And number two, you want to have a safe hay wagon. I've seen a lot of people now let people's feet dangle off the sides of the wagon. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have had a lot of safety with that and have done it fine, but it does have problems. What we did was we bought a 20-foot tandem trailer. Okay? And it typically has a rail that comes up approximately 2 feet. What is the benefit of a tandem trailer like this? Number one, you don't have to have any kind of steps to get in it because it's only 1 foot from the ground. So all it is a step on and a step off. It's very convenient. The thing that we did, if you notice on my hay wagon drawing, this is 2 feet high. Might want to zoom in here. This is 2 feet high, so that's the same exact height of a bale of hay. So the hay was flush with the top of the hay wagon. What we did was, as you can see, these were like rails, the side posts in the wagon. We built that up another 3 feet. And what we did was, so this was basically shoulder level on an average sized adult. So basically, when people sat in this hay wagon, they were facing each other. Now let's look at the hay wagon overall like this. You can see that. This is where they got on. We built the rails like this. So there was a small spot to get in. And then we put the hay in. And the hay went like this. It actually went all perfect, flush. The hay was in there like that. So people got in the hay wagon, they went all the way, and they sat in a U shape like this. Okay? And people were sitting here, and there was a rail coming down here, and then we had a chain going across here. So once they're in the wagon, and they can't get out of the wagon. Their backs are up against rails. They're looking at each other. It was actually better for the actors because the actors could interact with them a lot better. The actors, because the hay wagon was so low, could actually get in the wagon and walk around in the middle, and it made for a lot more of a fun experience. Now, we're going to go on out to Las Vegas, and we're going to take a look at Rich Strelick's Scare Fair 2000. One of the things that they do out there in Las Vegas, because it's hard to find property, and that's really important because haunters have to be creative. And I think that what Rich is doing is extremely creative. They've taken truck trailers and they've connected them. I'm going to try to draw you a picture. They've taken truck trailers like this and they've connected them like this. And then there might be one right here in front with a facade. People enter, and they might go like this, in, like this, Obviously, it's not very big, width-wise and whatnot. But one thing that's cool is that you could, once they come out, you could put like a deck here with steps, and because you could have, let's say, this trailer and this trailer separated, or actually, I should say this trailer and this trailer. They come down the deck, and you could build an outdoor graveyard. Tombstones, you know, a little trail. And so it would come out, it would go around and out. And that's how they do it. So they just back their trailers up and they connect them and off they go. This is a pretty cool concept. So let's take a look out in Las Vegas.
Scare Fair 2000 to see what unearthly horrors he could uncover. If you'd like to take a trip to the Scare Fair, you have it till tomorrow night only. The haunted house is open from 5 till 1 tomorrow, October 30th.
Most of the time I only find pieces. So please stay together. All of our residents here at the asylum have been mentally controlled, so they will not touch you. So please do the same. Keep your hands to yourselves. And don't move too fast in there. We don't want you to hurt yourself by tripping and falling. New patients!
Oh my gosh. Oh, I think we heard that. Oh my God.
color cut on this one.
Now we're going to talk about maze design. We're going to talk about designing a maze, some tips to design your maze now that you've decided whether you're doing a screen park or warehouse-style haunt or whatever. These are just tips. I've scribbled out on this piece of paper some lines. It's not an indicator of the types of mazes that we design. This is just, I want to be able to point out some examples to you. The first thing you want to do is you want to get some graph paper, a ruler, and a number 2 pencil. You want to plot out your haunted house or your area on graph paper. And I like doing it better this way rather than a CAD program or whatever, because it's more intimate. You can sit there and you can erase things and you can move it around and you can kind of play with it and make little notes and scribble on it and whatnot. And this here is just merely to give you some examples. One of the first things that I do, aside from plotting out the maze, whether it's each square represents 4 feet or 2 feet or whatever, the first thing you got to do, aside from figuring out, what obstructions you have, is an entrance and an exit. This is going to be the exit. This is the entrance. And the reason that I like to pinpoint the exit, for obvious reasons, you got to figure out a way to get back to it, is I like to take a maze and I like to try to section it off like this. I want to try to work this area right here, which I get close to the exit. Then I want to come back down and I want to have an area right in here to maze before I go back to the exit. This is going to give you more linear square feet of walking space. And as you notice in this maze, we're close to the exit. We're right there. And then it'll take you back around like so. And you're out. That's a lot of walking space. And of course this is not proportionate. A couple other tips I want to give you is these little boxes right here. I call these scare boxes, scare zones, whatever you want to call them. And they're strategically positioned. As you can see with this scare zone, look, we've walked in the maze. Now, typically, there might be a dropping door, a pulling door, a curtain, whatever for the actor to jump out of. Now, see, he can scare this whole line of people. And as you notice, the people go this way. Now, another group of people are wandering around this way. He's scaring a whole separate group of people. And I've been able to design mazes where he's getting them from 4 different sections of the maze. So any 4 directions he'd go, north, south, east, or west, that actor basically can hit a different group of people. And as you see with this scare zone, right here, the people come around, and he's exposed to them on this side. Okay? We could easily do all kinds of different things with these scare zones to get different people. Like say we could make this a scare zone. Well, the people are coming across here, and they're affected by this actor in this direction. Obviously, people are coming down this direction from a whole other section, and he can get them. Look, then they kind of loop back around, and he can get them again from, in this maze design, he can get them again from the south. So that's really important to eliminate actors, but still give that feeling that there's quite a few there. Another thing that you might want to consider is putting in pocket doors or, some doors that'll open. And see, this would be a good space for a door. Because, see, you can walk in, and this would be a good space here. Because, see, now you can walk in, you can get from here to here to here, put another door here, and so you literally made a line, a B line. So you can get literally anywhere in your maze that you want without having to walk through the whole thing. A couple other things that you want to try to do is you want to keep your scenes relatively small. The smaller you make them, the more detail you can get with them. If you have big, giant rooms, it's going to be hard to detail them. When you're designing your maze, have an idea, a scene list. Bing, 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 bing. These are the scenes I want to have. And in your mind, you've got to figure out where could that go, how much space do I really need for this animation or that animation or whatever, or this scene. But try to be very precise with your maze design. So now that we've decided what kind of haunted house we're going to have, we've decided what kind of, we've designed our maze, obviously, what kind of like superseding designing the maze, you need to obviously know what kind of haunted house you want. So we're going to talk about themes. There's lots of themes you can have: Gothic, a haunted mansion, alien, carnival, jails, psycho wards, toxic waste dumps, traditional, and of course something original. One of the things, if you want to try to meld several together, for example, a haunted hotel, a haunted mansion, a Gothic cemetery, so let's say the streets of New York, so to speak. I'm going to draw you another picture. Let's say this is your maze. Okay? Now, what did we say we wanted? We wanted streets of New York. We wanted a mansion, which I'm sure you can't read this. We said we wanted, what else did we say we wanted? We wanted a cemetery, and we wanted a hotel. We want to try to incorporate these four themes into our haunted house. Let's take our haunted house and let's divide it in four. Just like that. Again, our entrance is here, our exit is there. Okay, what makes the most sense? What probably would make the most sense is to have a hotel here. It's a hotel lobby, let's say, for example. It's a haunted hotel. Well, it kind of goes without saying that a haunted hotel is like a haunted mansion. But that would be too easy to go from the haunted hotel to the haunted mansion. So let's say you go in your haunted hotel and you wind around through scenes that, let's say you have your hotel lobby, you have a ballroom, and so on and so forth. Well, guess what? The haunted you exit the hotel into a cemetery. And you wind around through the cemetery. And guess what you come up on? You come up on a facade of a house. The cemetery, you go from out of the hotel through the cemetery and you come up to the house. And you see a facade of a house. And you go through the house, wandering around. And guess what? You leave the house and you exited your home and you're in the streets. You're outside the home, you're in the streets of London. Okay, with Jack the Ripper, or you're in this, depending on what if you make it a Victorian style or more modern or whatever you have it, you're in the city streets. So here we've incorporated four different themes and they make sense. But what sense would a hotel, an alien, it makes no sense. But you see, if you sit down and you plot out your theme, you might be able to make some sense out of it. And so that's what I wanted to say about theming. Now, moving on, we're going to talk about props. We're going to get rid of this. You got to find props. And we talked about this in How to Create Your Own Haunted House, Part 1. You got antique stores, but you need to go to the cheaper ones. You can't go to these high-priced antique stores, although you can go there. And one of the key things they ask for is, do you have anything that's unfinished, something you're working on, some junk you bought? Because you're looking for junk. But there's a lot of antique stores that deal mostly in lower quality stuff. You can also go to these antique malls, and you'll see all kinds of cool stuff, and you can bid on this stuff. And another thing a lot of people don't think about where they can find props is Walmart, Kmart, a sporting goods store. Let's say you're doing a Jason theme. Well, you can go to any Walmart and get all kinds of fishing tackle. You could get tents. You can get camping gear. You can even get real lanterns, and so on and so forth. I've gone to Walmart many a time and loaded up several shopping carts for these kinds of themes. So when you're thinking about where to get your props, think about the basics. It's a lot of people go and they think, well, I got to buy some big giant, animatronic or some 4,000. That's all. That's the last thing you need to think about. You got to detail your scenes. Whatever your theme is, your scenes have got to match the theme. So if it's, for example, a camping theme, why not go to Walmart and you could spend a couple $1,000s and walk out of there with a van full of camping gear, for example. A great place to get props is the Goodwill and Salvation Army. You literally can go to any Salvation Army and buy truckloads of books, old couches, lamps, so on and so forth. If you want to dress up, corpses and monsters, if you want to build your own, which I suggest rather than buying them, you can buy hundreds of suits. You can go in there and they got prices on things, and you can say, look, I want to buy all your books. I'll give you a flat fee for them. I mean, you got to negotiate. Another great place is flea markets, although I tend not to waste my time going to them because I tend to feel that these people selling at flea markets think that their stuff's worth millions of dollars, and they're hard to deal with sometimes. And then, of course, you have your catalogs like the Morris catalog and our catalog, and Distortions and all these other companies so that will sell you the products and stuff. Now we're going to go straight from props to sound. So we're going to go back to our drawing board. We're just rolling right through this. Okay, we got stereos. Way back on How to Create Your Own Haunted House, I talked about stereos. This is the form that I recommended on that tape, but I do not no longer advocate it. But you can take a stereo and you can go and take the left side out, and you can take the right side out. So you could take tape deck 1 and tape deck 2, and of course that's with endless loop cassettes, which is how we used to do the sound, and you can go out the speaker and another speaker. So for every stereo you could have 2 tape decks and 2 sounds. So you could have 2 individual sound systems for every stereo. That's one way to do it. Let me tell you why I don't recommend it. Because, number one, the stereos don't like that kind of abuse, and they can't take the fog very well. And then plus, furthermore, it's like you're running speaker wire, maybe 100 or 200 feet, and if for some reason that this sound goes out, there's too much troubleshooting to go through to figure out what happened. The thing that I do recommend, however, is preamp speakers. And some of you might be saying, oh, there you go, being self-promotional again, because everybody knows that we sell these things. But that is not why I'm promoting them. With a preamp, with a crate preamp speaker, yeah, sure, they're about $300. Or actually, I think they're about $350. But they got 2.5 watts. They're very, very loud. I mean, they're very loud. They have an equalizer, so you can equalize the sound out. But the cool thing is they have an input and an output. You can put a tape deck with an endless loop cassette, run it out of the back, plug it right in. So you can take and go right on the tops of your walls. You can set up your speaker, okay? You press play and you walk away. For any reason it goes out, you've got everything you need right there. And it's the easiest way to do it. It's very loud. They sound very good because they have bass. They have, the treble doesn't blow out like some cheap speaker. By the time you get your speaker or your stereo and your speaker, a decent speaker, whatever, you have at least $350 invested. Unless you're going to get a real cheap stereo and they're constantly blow fuses. So this is the way that I now recommend it. And the cool thing is you have an output. And these are all male plugs, so they don't go bad as easily as the cheaper version. You can send a male line as far away as you want to another crate preamp speaker and plug in. Now you don't have to use like crates. There's all kinds of preamp speakers that you can find, but that is the ideal way of doing it. Another thing is you can use digital audio repeaters with a crate preamp speaker. You can take your digital audio repeater, you go out of it, in, and you're done. Okay. Now, another thing is you've got CDs and you've got tapes. Which one to use? Which one to use? I think not on the CD, because the CD players, because I like to put the sound right there with the sound, with the unit that's putting out the sound, like the crate preamp speaker. So if something goes wrong, I can troubleshoot it right there. I don't like to have a room with all my sound in it and run gobs and miles of speaker wire or cable wire. I don't like to do that. So I don't go for the CDs because the CDs don't like the fog very much, and it also is not as easy to get a CD to loop like it is an endless loop tape deck. And tape decks are cheaper, the tapes are cheaper, and so on and so forth. So that is looking at my thing, make sure there's nothing else. One other thing I want to say about sound is the sound you use. We like to have individual sounds for each scene. If we've got a cemetery, we like to have cemetery music. We don't have one overall sound going out throughout the whole place. So that is real important to us. And the sound you use, we like to go for stuff that's unusual. We don't like to buy your typical scary change rattler and stuff like that. We like to create the sounds individually. And you can go to a lot of radio stations, and they might have somebody that'll do it on the side for you. And of course, the music that you use, try to find stuff that's very unique, stuff you've never heard, look in places you've never thought of. Obscure movies typically have some real funky sounds and things like this. And of course, you can always use Midnight Syndicate, which is the exclusive soundtrack of Hauntworld the Movie 8 and 9, and I think we also used it on 6 and 7 and so on and so forth. Their stuff is really amazing. And you can go see them at midnightsyndicate.com. So now, we're going to go and look at another haunted house, because we've talked quite a bit, and we're going to go check out two haunted houses back to back. These were put together by Robert Short, and one's called Chateau Greystoke, and the other one's called the Terror Dome, which was in Pittsburgh, and I believe it was inside the arena where the Pittsburgh Penguins play. So let's check out these two haunted houses, and we'll see you on the rebound.
Welcome to Chateau Greystoke.
Hi, I'm Jill Deacon. It seems Halloween is hitting us early this year. Nope, scared out of your wits. One of Montreal's newest attractions is a haunted theme park in a shopping mall. This is Chateau Greystoke, a safe playground treat, or fairly safe, I think, for all you Halloween tricksters.
character?
Basically, my job is to be Red Clover's character, Dracula. This is like the whole place. It's very challenging to get into character over and over again. I don't have this here every 5 minutes, so to be going crazy like that, it's a lot of fun.
Couldn't fight me.
Here we are, at the stage of the Chateau Greystoke.
I'm the Dungeon Master. I get this one's not it.
My name is Matthew McGill. I play the usher.
Stay close. Follow me. We've got xenomorph contamination throughout the ship. We've got to make it to the escape pod on the other side of the engine room. Follow me. Look out!
Welcome to my kitchen. I wish you the flesh. I prefer some tender flesh. The tongue is so tender. Look how fresh it is. Everyone, get in the freezer. All that for dinner.
Thankfully, for some some of us, Chateau Greystoke is more than just spattered blood and severed limbs. In this room here, the lights on, they have amassed a memorable collection of monstrous memorabilia.
Scary for me. I couldn't finish the tour.
Yes, we have brought plenty of fresh human blood for you tonight.
It's a bit disgusting.
More flesh. More.
The actors are very good, and you get scared. If you get into it, you can get scared.
Chucky, no. Chucky, no.
It's running around.
I think the kids are really especially the
Well, I lost count of the screen.
That's good. Nice.
I live there.
let's get right back into creating your own haunted house. We're going to do some more drawings right here on the board. The cheap way of doing things around here at Hauntworld. So let's scan over here. We're going to talk about fog. Now, one of my pet peeves about fog is that I visit somebody's haunted house or whatever, and they've got these cheap fog machines that they spend like $150 on or whatever. And this is no self-promotional plug. We obviously sell fog machines that are of higher quality, ones that you can control the output, the duration, the time between each spray, and so on and so forth. The bottom line is that we use these fog machines for a reason. About one good fog machine, and you literally can fog up your whole entire haunted house. We talked about this on how to create your own haunted house. Things haven't changed. Put your fog machine right here, and then you want to have, actually we'll make this the blower box. You can make one out of a squirrel fan, or you can buy one, or they also have those fans that blow up those big giant balloons or whatever. They're not very expensive. But you want a blower box, and then obviously you want a fog machine. Your fog machine sprays into your blower box. But the thing you really got to have when your fog machine is you've got to have the controls. You got to be able to control the output, the duration, and it's got to be automatic too. You press one button, you set it, and so that setting is going to control how much fog and how often it fogs and how often between each time it fogs, and so on and so forth. So it's just something you turn on and you leave it alone outside of replacing the fog. And you obviously want to get one that can hold a 2.5-gallon container so you can go through a Saturday night without changing it. And of course, you've got your maze, so on and so forth, like this. Okay, now we got the fog machine. All you want to do is you want to get some that black tubing, that drain tile type stuff, and all you want to do there, okay, is you want to run the drain tile over the tops of the maze, and see, it'll drag over here, and then you want to get a turn on it. See, we want to run it all the way down here, so on and so forth. But one of the things that we like to do is we like to put the fog in the middle. We like to run one line all the way down. I'm going to show you the easiest way to do this. This is your black tubing. Then we'll cut it. And then we'll put in a T. So there's a tube coming out this way and one coming out this way, and then obviously going back forward. Cap it at the end. See, run your lines out like this. Cut it, we're running the lines out like this. And then if you want to, you can get downpours, to pour into the scene or whatever you want to do. But see, here's the beauty. You got air blowing in, and it's going to all of your tubes. It goes everywhere. And all you got to do is wherever you want the fog to come out, you take a knife and you cut holes in the spouts. And you can actually cut it like three-quarters of a square. You can pull that downspout, and it'll actually catch the air, and it'll have the fog come pouring straight down into your scene. So as you can see, with one good fog machine and a blower box, you can literally blow fog throughout your whole attraction with one fog machine. It's really the way to go. Now, we've talked enough about that. We're going to talk about lighting. Black lights, no. 3D, yes. Black lights in a haunted house, that's carnival stuff, okay? Skip the black lights. There's different kinds of light, okay? There's pin spots, there's can lights, there's floodlights, there's strobe lights, there's effect lights. Let's go back here. A pin spot. What would you use a pin spot for? You use a pin spot because it only puts out a beam of light. Let's say on the wall you have a picture, a scary picture. And let's say that's a drop picture. You want to take your pin spot and you want to pinpoint the face, for example, of the picture. So people can see it, they'll look at it, and all of a sudden, boom! That thing drops and an actor comes out. But let's say you have a scary monster. Okay, you want to take your pin spot and you want to put it on the face so people can see it. That's what a pin spot is for. A lot of the times in our haunted house, we'll have, like, say, a scene. Okay, and we had like this elevator scene. Here's the elevator doors. We had some cool things that went around here, and we had some really cool faces up here. All right, and then we had like some kind of candle holder there. But we had pin spots, and we focused on these faces, like this. And we had some really cool things on the sides, and we had pin spots hitting those, and pin spots hitting these, okay? Now, you have other lights, which are can lights. And can lights typically put out, I'd say, they put out light like this. They put out circles of light, not much, okay? So you can, like, say, put a, down here, we got, let's go to a graveyard. We got a graveyard. And so on and so forth. And you got a zombie over here. These are zombies. Okay? And you got your pin spots, maybe hitting the face. And sometimes it's really cool to cross them because in the fog it looks kind of neat. Then you got your can lights. Your can lights is basically putting a little bit of light there. And let's make that one red. And let's get another can light over here and go with some green so they kind of cross over. And so half the tombstone is red and the other half is green. And that's basically what we're doing here with these can lights. We're just flooding the room with different color lights. Now, another kind of light is a floodlight, and that's typically got a really high-powered bulb. And what that does, that casts a solid color over the entire room. And once you flood a room, it's really hard to highlight the room. So typically, we don't use floodlights unless we're trying to, make something very bright in one color. Another kind of light is obviously strobe lights, and we typically put those at the end of a hallway. So let's take a look at the strobe light. We're going to actually take a look at a couple of things. I would have a strobe light in people's face. So they're walking and they look at the strobe light because they can't see what's on the other side of the strobe light. Because lights, say if this is your hallway, lights are shining like this. So if somebody is standing here, but somebody is walking this direction, they cannot see what's on the other side of that light as it casts its light down like this. So they're walking right into a trap, so to speak. They're walking into an actor. And say, you take like a Martin light, which we have lots of those, and you can pick those up from like SLD and all over the internet. And they put out like rays of light. It's the most amazing effect. They put out tons of this little lights, and they might turn or whatever. Again, they're putting out the lights, and they might be turning. The customer walks into the light. They cannot see what's on the other side of the light. So it actually adds an effect to your haunted house, which you could pick these effects up for $300 or $400. But it's a scare also because the customer cannot see underneath the bottom of the beams of light. So those are the different kinds of lights, and of course you've got effect lights and all kinds of things like this. But these are typically how we light our haunted houses. And then you've got big stuff that you can't even afford, that really are kind of unnecessary, like track spots and lasers and emulators and things. I don't think they're necessary. Now, before we go on any further, we're going to take a look at a haunted house that we did. It was out in Wildwood, New Jersey. It was called Curse of the Mummy in 3D. It's an awesome facade. It's out on the pier. It's open all year round. Well, I shouldn't say all year round. It's open in the amusement season, like spring to late fall, and, towards the end of the summer. It's really cool. It's in 3D. Let's check it out. No actors. Let's just take a look at the house. Again, Jim, I don't think you'll be making any animations anytime soon. Don't ever do that to me again. Poor Jim. You will no longer see him in any more Hauntworld videos. Now that's the end of Hauntworld the Movie Part 8. We talked about a lot of things with creating your own haunted house, a lot of basics, and we're going to go into a little bit more advanced stuff in Part 9. So we want you to come back with us for Part 9, and we'll be back at it again. And don't forget, if you want to learn something, trade something, you want to find something, Hauntworld is the place to do it. Search engines and so on and so forth. Everything you need to know about the haunted house industry is at www.hauntworld.com. And we'll see you back in How to Create Your Own Haunted House. No, we've skipped that series. Yeah, but it's kind of like that. We'll see you back for Hauntworld Part 9. Thanks a lot.
Hello again, all you human viewers. It's me, Dr. Lady, at Horror Hotel one more time. And, well, before the show ends up here, I just wanted to let you know that I am back from my little time travel experiment to go back in time and change the past and thereby solve all these problems we've been having with the Hauntworld series. And I want you to know that everything turned out really well. Maybe I should say everything turned out really well. Okay, let me give you the good news first. See, the good news is I did manage to go back to the proper period in time. I was able to contact my wife, Laura, and convince her not to dematerialize Dr. Frightener, because I explained to her that if she did, Larry wouldn't hire me on as permanent host of Hauntworld anyway. He would simply disguise himself as Dr. Frightener and go on hosting the series anyhow himself. So that never happened. And also, I managed to get hold of the guy who killed Larry, that employee of his, and I convinced him, don't kill Larry, whatever you do. If you thought Larry was a nuisance as a human, he's an even bigger one as a ghost. The guy is worse as a ghost than he was as a human being. So I know it may seem hard to believe for some of you, but we're all better off if Larry stays alive. Honestly. Now, of course, there were some minor problems because it was sort of like Wolfie said, when you go back in time and change history, you always run the risk of, messing up things in the present. And, well, I've only been back 5 minutes, but I've already found out that in this reality I've come back to, Dogs have opposable thumbs. The Vienna Boys Choir just won the Super Bowl. Saturday Night Live is funny. And all names in the English language, first names, middle names, last names, they all begin with the syllable Mick. That's capital M, small c. And if you're wondering how all that happened, yeah, it was my fault. I'll tell you what happened was I threw my gum on the sidewalk, and you can pretty much guess the rest. But not to worry, I've learned a valuable lesson from all this. I really have. And that is that gum you peel off the bottom of a theater seat doesn't really taste that good in the first place. But don't worry, everybody. I'm going to be going back in time once more. I'm going to hook up the time travel abacus in the lab one more time and go back and correct the mistakes I made, and everything will work out fine. I'm sure of it this time. But you know, this has been a very stressful day for me. I think before I do that, I need to relax a little. I think maybe I'll go watch a video on television. What shall I watch tonight? There must be a new video here somewhere.
So that wraps up Hauntworld the Movie Part 8. Now we're getting ready for Hauntworld the Movie Part 9. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Hauntworld channel because we are showing you some of the best haunts in the world. Make sure you list and update your profile on Hauntworld.com because Hauntworld.com gets hundreds of thousands of views and hits every single year from people trying to find your haunted house. Until next time, happy Halloween!
For scary videos and more, subscribe to our YouTube page, Hauntworld.com.